So we have here with us Dr. Tekesia Jackson Rudd. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
I said that really
Thank
right.
you
I was
for
just
getting all
making
the
sure.
letters.
Yeah. I make sure I say that right, man, because we don't want to get no mix up. We don't want the husband saying, hey, wait a minute. But I thank you for joining me here today on this interview. It's just a few questions that I have. I want to touch on the topic of abandonment.
Okay.
Uh, the discussion is just to open the eyes and bring understanding and knowledge and awareness to
Mm-hmm.
those that may be dealing with abandonment or
Mm-hmm.
struggling with the issue of abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so uh, I want to go ahead and start with the questions, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
First of all, I want to ask. My first question is, can you tell me your full name, even though I said it already?
I give you my middle name.
Your full name and what is it exactly that you do?
Okay. So my name is Tekesia Jackson Rudd, or Dr. Tekesia Jackson Rudd. I am a clinical psychologist. And so I provide currently in my private practice online, no longer in the office,
Hey.
individual counseling. I also do what's called conjoint counseling because I do work with young people, or I'll say young adults that still live at the home with their parents. So we do conjoint therapy. And then I do from time to time, due to our new era, couples counseling, but that's primarily what I do. And then I'm also a psychology professor. And then I also coach other mental health professionals to have a private practice so they can provide mental health.
Wow. A lot of credentials. A lot of credentials. And you are a Black woman
Yeah.
striving in this world. Let's go. Listen. I just got to give you a hand right now because
Thank you.
you're doing it. You are doing it. And don't you have children, by the way?
Yes. So we have two children. We have a 9-year-old, a 2-year-old, and then we're all in the house.
Hey, dealing with that quarantine life.
Right.
Listen, I understand it completely. I have 4 children. We just had a newborn. So yeah, that struggle is completely real. I understand it. So the second question that I have for you, as you can hear my newborn, um, what jobs have you worked at where you have dealt with children who have been abandoned? So, like I said, our topic of discussion is abandonment, and we're going to tackle the issue on abandonment. So, what jobs have you dealt with or worked at that dealt with that?
So everyone, but I'll just categorize them because those children turned into adults with abandonment issues. So I'll say, like, in order, if we go per age, I've worked at elementary schools where, I'm gonna say K through 12 actually. So I've worked as low as the littles, like 4-year-olds.
Wow.
I think one of the types of abandonment that I saw that we typically don't talk about are children who immigrate from a different country and they come here. And I had one kid in a summer program where a couple adopted him. This was in Northern California, but he was from Russia. And so he was part of the orphanage, not the series per se, but the orphanages documentaries we would see where they would put like 3 to 4 kids in like one of those big crib kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I've worked with kids like that. And then of course in the regular school system, in the Black and brown community, working with kids who have been abandoned on various levels, whether it be, I don't think any abandonment is on purpose per se. I think that abandonment is as a result of a parent or caregiver going to jail, being raised by your grandparent, parents being on drugs, parents, I'm gonna say, being too young or young-minded, because they may not be young, but young-minded to be a parent. And then I've worked in the juvenile correctional facilities where I think one of the worst cases with abandonment is seeing kids' parents not want to come pick them up because they're tired, which on one end, like 10% of me would see the kids' behaviors, for heck 9 months. I can only imagine a lifetime, of getting in trouble. But at the same time, like, you're just gonna leave your kid in jail. And then for adults, like in my private practice or in community clinics, just dealing with their baggage of their abandonment issues and how it's kind of messed up their relationships and levels of success.
Wow. Okay, because we're going to touch on the adult side. But right now, I want to touch on the juveniles that
Hmm.
were young men that you work with, and even young women
Hmm.
that you interacted with. And so I want to know, what were some of their responses towards being abandoned and their behaviors? How
Hmm.
have you how did you work with that, and
Hmm.
even with the encounterment of it?
Hmm. So it was, I'm laughing, but it was so not funny. It's pretty interesting. I have to laugh off bad situations. That's my
Right.
defense. So in one of the facilities that I worked at, the very first facility, it's a commingling of probation and mental health and
Yes.
medical professionals and teachers. And so the kids, it would be a sign that says on top of the probation office, like, let me catch you, or great job, I caught you doing good. Right.
Mm,
But no one would ever like use it. And I saw that, and I've been knowing this about kids for a long time, that kids typically, or teenagers, I'm going to say, but kids too, they don't usually show their sadness as much as they would show their anger. And so a lot of kids are actually, especially kids of color or who grew up around like community violence and stuff,
yes.
they typically are underdiagnosed or overly diagnosed with things like ADHD. Some kids are diagnosed with bipolar. Some kids are diagnosed a lot with, in the jail facilities, behavioral problems.
Yeah.
And in actuality, if somebody just sat down and got to know them, then they will recognize that they have a lot of trauma, like also linked to abandonment, on various levels, and that's why they act the way that they act. And so, with the whole sign, I was laughing because in a meeting that we would have when these kids would come in, I would hear some probation officer say, "Now, if you're the kid, for example, and I'm the PO, I may say something to you like, you'll know when you're doing good in this program because I won't know your name." And I'm thinking, well, what kind of message is that? Like, don't you want them to know your name? But it was actually
Wow.
accurate. Kids who were acting out actually received negative attention, but nevertheless they got attention. So what did that do? It negatively reinforced them to keep acting a fool, but then it ended up getting them in more trouble. But they were also doing it, latching on to the adults in the facility because they had had some level of unhealthy relationships or abandonment from parents or caregivers.
Mm. So you're saying that the children that were causing a lot of ruckus, as you put it,
Mhm.
um, they were the ones that were more attached to the adults or the workers that were there, correct?
Well, they had a desire to receive more attention. They
Hmm.
just didn't know how to get the attention, so they would get it by acting out. And unfortunately, like mental health, we're trained. Probation, depending on their background, some of them are very well trained, and then some of them, have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, but it may not be in psychology or no courses, a lot of them in psych.
Wow.
So they may not see that the kid is negatively seeking their attention because of the hurt that they have. And
Yes.
so the PO will give them the attention to shut them up. But then in essence, they still get in trouble. So what I'm saying is it doesn't teach the kid anything. It only teaches the kid how to get more attention by doing bad stuff
Hmm.
like that.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Wow, wow, that is super knowledgeable. Listen, if you people are hearing this, pay attention, adults, pay attention to your children that acting out, because they may be seeking attention from you. They may be seeking attention from you. And so with
Mhm.
me, I know being a father of four, I make sure that I'm tending to the needs of my children because I know that I understand the abandonment, of not being wanted, not feeling wanted, or
Mhm.
feeling like nobody cares for you, or feeling like you nobody's paying attention to you or the things that you do, even the little
Mhm.
things that you do, like drawing in the color book. So I understand that completely. So I'm so sensitive to my children when it comes to them, and they're trying to get my attention. Daddy, 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 look, look. And so my wife had to remind me because sometimes I'd be zoned out. And so she'd be
Mhm.
like, babe, like, you don't hear your kids? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, baby. What's up? You know? And so, yeah, that's very good. That's very good. Knowledgeable for all parents. Listen,
Mhm.
you're trying to grow as a parent, a father, or mother. Listen, pay attention to this. So let's continue. So with children, um, you see a lot of trauma and
Yeah.
a lot of mental illness that comes into play with these individuals. Is that right? Can
Yeah.
you expound on that, please?
Mhm. So, in I would say in mental health, we have a variety of different diagnoses, and I think that people have a misconception of mental health still, and that they either think they're going to be put on medication, or they think they're going to be in therapy for the rest of their life, or they don't think that anybody's going to understand their perspective. And so um, I'll walk you through my stages of mental health, and I think it overlaps with most clinicians' stages of how we do therapy, but then we may deliver the services that look different. So I have 5 stages of therapy, and I like to educate people on them so that they can understand there's a beginning and an end. Like, there is no, you about to be on my couch or on my computer for the rest of your life. Like, I am not your lifetime therapist. That's called a mentor. And so the beginning stage is you recognizing that there's an area that you need to work on. And it has to be a willing to work on it, because if you're coming to therapy and you're not willing to be teachable or coachable, then I don't understand. You wasting both of our time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I really encourage a consultation. And a consultation is a way that you can kind of like gel with your therapist. So like if a potential client will call me and say, hey, I'm interested in therapy. Okay, let's schedule up to 15 minutes, a consultation call. And it's not a therapy session, but let me just get an understanding of why you're coming in. And then that goes into the assessment. So then we have a full blown session that can be from, depending on the age of the person, child or adult, it can be from 30 minutes up to an hour. And that's me getting to know you. That may be over the course of 1 to 3 sessions, if not more, because it depends on how open you are to me. Some people are scared to open up their Pandora's box. Some people don't want to open up unless they feel like they can vibe with the therapist. So it's like, but we're gathering historical data, and we have to ask you about your childhood, even though you think you worked it out, because that could be holding you back. And then from there, we just develop goals together. Together is a key word. And because it's not my therapy. And then we do the treatment. And then at the end, it's graduation, meaning you've done what you needed to do. You got tools, but the misconception is also you have to be perfect in order to end therapy. And that's where I see abandonment come up again, because a lot of clients are like, oh, so you just gonna end our relationship? And I'm like, you don't think this is like good that you like got better? And so what we do is, or what I do, every maybe month or two, I have the conversation with the client and say, do you remember the first time you came in? And I'll ask them, and they like, sure, man, I came a long way. And I keep that conversation going. So by the time I tell them, let's go from weekly to biweekly to Monday, they already know how I get down. When I start tapering them down, that means you're doing what you're supposed to do. You did your job. And now you have my toolbox. You don't physically need me every week.
Wow.
Wow.
This is so beautiful. And I'm just in awe of the work that you're doing, because it's needed. It's needed in our communities. It's needed for our colored people, like you stated. Wow, it's beautiful and amazing. And so one of the things that I took note. So you said recognize that you need to recognize the work that you need to be done. Right, recognize where you are basically, and then get consultation. And then the next session, you will get to know the individual, develop goals together. Together is a key word. Y'all working together on this. Get treatment, and then graduation. Wow, some major steps of progress and showing that you are progressing in every area. That is beautiful. So my fifth question that I have for you is, do you believe that, because we're going to touch on now the adults. So we just hit on the topic of the children, and we tiptoed in there. And so with adults, because I know with me, I had became an adult, and I still had dealt with the trauma of my dad abandoning me. It was hard. And so I had to literally face the monster that was under my bed. And so with dealing with those challenges, it built a lot of issues within my marriage, within trust with my friends, and people that were surrounding me, trust with my mom, everybody. And even as I went through life from youth to teen, now adult, like, and so I just want you to touch on the perspective from an adult and how you dealt with the trauma of people being an adult, because you tiptoe in there a couple of times, but I want you to really touch on that topic.
Yeah. So I'm laughing. So my help for others in this area comes from two different areas. So one of them comes from a personal nature. I too come from a single parent household where father incarcerated pretty much my whole life, but lived down the street when he was out, so that brings up a whole nother level of abandonment. And it also brings up, which I'll share something with you, is a state of unforgiveness. Because if you stay in a state of unforgiveness, it will trickle down to other areas of your life, or other relationships, including like romantic ones. Right. So I think that some of the work that I've been able to do, honestly, has been through working through my own baggage, because one thing that I was taught when I was first introduced to like being a doctor in this field, one of my professors said, you have to work through your own stuff, because if you don't, you'll wound up sitting across from yourself. And I was like, what? Or whatever. She would drill it in our heads. And I didn't get it actually until I started working with teenagers, and I got a little bit of it with a Black boy who I was sitting with. And you remember the movie Gridiron Gang?
Yes.
When The Rock was sitting with the head guy, the main guy, and he was in the locker room at the beginning, and he was like, have you forgiven your father? And The Rock was like, oh, no, like, oh man. And so I literally had one of those moments at a high school in Richmond when me and the little boy were playing. I started digging a little deeper with his lack of dad. And I was asking him about forgiveness, and I was teaching him about forgiveness, quote unquote. Hey, how can I teach somebody and I ain't did it? Because he called me. Right. He was like, so, because I tell the kids so they can relate to me, is he said, well, I know you came from a single parent household too. Did you forgive your dad, Dr. Jackson? And I was like,
wait a minute.
I did, but I didn't fully until he asked me. And I said, dang, I got to go do some work. So I use everything that I did to move forgiveness from abandonment issues in my personal life. But then with the adult clients, what I've also created in my business for my private practice is I take them through a series of events in a particular activity that I do to help them, I'm going to say, create a movie with categorical things that happen in their life. And so one of the prompts is like, remember the earliest age you can remember, and then they're going to tell me about significant events, positive and negative, not just negative, about those events. But my job is to listen to that story and pull out the baggage if they don't pick it up themselves, because odds are they will if they write it down. And then I have to pick out the themes. So I'm going to do this with you right now just to like show people who are going to hear this or listen to this.
No problem.
So you're going to be like a mock client, right? Well, so you're going to be the therapist, actually. I'm going to be the client. So this is what I say with my clients. I want you to listen to this little mini story, and I want you to pull out the theme that's present. It's one thing that keeps happening over and over. So, and I kind of just make these stories up. So I'm going to share one. So let's just say I'm a little girl and I grew up in a 2-parent household. Parents are married. And at around 4 or 5, they start arguing a lot. And then around maybe 7, I'm in 2nd grade now, my mom and my dad come to me and say, hey, we're going to split up. We're separating, like we're getting divorced or whatever. So of course I'm like sad, like, where am I going? And then my parents give me a choice. I choose my mom. Like, well, I'm always with my mom.
Hold on, doctor. Video is kind of acting. If you could hear me, hold on, doctor. Okay, there we go. There we go.
Oh, wait.
Are we back?
All right. Okay. So, all right. So I was like, wait, did you freeze? So, okay. So parents arguing at 4 or 5. At 7, they tell me they want to get a divorce. They ask me where I want to go. So I say, I want to go with my mom. At the time, mom is not financially stable, meaning she can't take care of me by herself. So she moves us in with her parents, mom and dad. So father ain't that far. He's involved, but we have to move. I also have to move school districts because we don't live in the same area no more. So I lost all my friends. So then I moved with my grandparents. Everything was fine. My grandfather starts to get sick. At this time, maybe I'm in 7th grade. So my grandfather ends up passing away. So when my grandfather passes away, everything is cool. And then my mom like, oh, I got a new job. I'm in 8th grade now. I'm 13. My mom gets a new job and she was like, I know you and your friends supposed to go to the same high school, but I want to put you in a better school district. So now we got to move again. So me and my mom moved into our own spot, but it's for good reason. She got a good job. My grandmother is fine by herself. Grandfather is deceased. Father is still around somewhere. See him on the weekends or something. And then when I start in the next grade, my mom gets me a dog because I'm by myself. I'm lonely. And so she says, here's this little dog. And so I decide to go take the dog for a walk, and I forgot to lock the gate. And the dog ran away. I'm 14 years old. what is the common theme that I've shared already? It's
Mm.
one thing that keeps coming up.
It sounds like movement, separation.
Yeah. Like, so we can think about multiple words in a summary, like instability to a
Mm-hmm.
degree, um, like constant adjustment, having
Mm-hmm.
to lose friends, get friends,
Mm-hmm.
having to see her parents on different schedules.
Right.
And the problem is, this is a very normalized story because we would just look at, well, our mom got a new job. We
Right.
got a dog. We went to a better school.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't really look at the trauma and levels of abandonment that
Wow.
that can create. And then take this 14-year-old girl
Mm-hmm.
and then turn her into a 25-year-old woman.
Right.
Because it didn't stop at 14. What if her mom just kept getting better, but she never took in consideration the daughter's movement? And let's just say she got offered heck a job out of state. Now
Right.
she can't even see her dad as much.
Yeah.
So is it abandonment
Mm.
per the parent's choice? No, but the child still feels abandoned because nobody is paying attention to her emotions.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
wanted to share that piece because we only look at abandonment like the parent left the kid, and
Right.
that's not
Right.
necessarily.
That's good. That is so awesome. We cannot just look at the fact of the parent is leaving, but also concerning yourself with the feelings and emotions of the child who's dealing with all this that is surrounding them. Wow,
Mhm.
that is
And then they become the adult woman or man that you're in a relationship with.
and they're still dealing with it. Wow.
Yeah, because they either become what is it? What's the words that we use? Clingy, or I where's a pen at? Like it says I use this right. So I tell people, like, and think about yourself too, because you
Okay.
can't help people if you can't help yourself. So I
Yes.
tell people, think about yourself in 3 different areas of a relationship based off who
Mhm.
you are. So you're either going to have healthy relationships, which is awesome,
Right.
or most people in a relationship ends up on one of 2 ends of the spectrum, which causes conflict.
Wow.
So like I've done this with my husband. So on one end, whatever happened in your history, like in your childhood, it's created you to have a mindset that you have to be clingy. You have to
Mm.
latch on quick. You can't let go. These are the
Mm.
people who they just look clingy. They all up under you, but it's a psychology behind it. Because maybe they're in fear that you're going to leave because maybe they've had people leave too much
Mm.
or not stable. Then you have the other side. And most people think that this is the strong person because of what I'm about to say. They're like, oh, that's healthy. No, it's not. This person over here will actually let you in. But the problem is if you mess them over one time or they don't like what went down, they will put up a very strong brick wall. And some
Mm.
people will be like, well, that's strong. You can move on to the next relationship
Yes.
successfully. No, you can't. You're going to take that baggage with you and you're
Yeah.
going to act like everything is fine and you're not. That's still not healthy.
Yes.
But
Yes.
these 2 people end up getting together though, more than likely. It's very like interesting, which is why they argue like, I want to be with you all the time. No, go out with your friends. Like,
Right. Right. Pay attention. People are looking to be married. Deal with your issues. Deal with those monsters under the bed before you even think about anything, okay? Listen, if you need to see a therapist, we have an awesome one right here, Dr. Tekesia Jackson. She is amazing. We're going to continue on down the road with these questions because it is getting so good up in here. I know people are going to be feeding off of this. Listen. My next question I have, what dealing with these situations, what had inspired you to work with people and helping them through the mental health?
Mhm, mhm. So I would say in the beginning stages, some therapists don't want to admit this, but I think it's something that we saw ourselves. And so from different milestones in my life, it goes from being exposed to what was supposed to be mental health when I was in high school, which just wasn't the ideal introduction to mental health. So it's not like I disliked mental health. It actually made me want to help kids in my community more, but in a more receptive way. So that was an experience that I had being like a portion of my teenagehood. I had a mouth on me, so got in trouble a little bit, and so whatever. So from there, then I always said I wanted to help people. And it wasn't until I ran across a professor in college where psychology didn't come as easy to me because it just made me think philosophically. And so
Yeah.
that's what I recognized, like, oh, I like this. And then I started working in the field, like in group homes. And that's when I recognized just how easy it was, honestly, to work with. I would always choose like difficult populations, like the kids who were abandoned. They went to this group home I used to work at.
Yeah.
Parents didn't want to come get them, or they were taken away from with the system, the DCFS system. So I would work with those kids, non-voluntarily, and then working in community mental health. A lot of those kids were now volunteering to come to therapy, like in these high schools. But then I started to recognize there was more of a systemic problem, like whether it be in their community or their families. So then that started opening up the doors to do more family therapy. And then I started working with teenagers again when working in the jails, but in my own business. And I started to recognize, and if parents are listening to this, they may not like it, but it's okay. This is what I tell my parents when they come in for their kid. About 8 times out of 10, the kid is not my client. About 8 times out of 10, the parent is my client, but they want to send their kid for me to have a magical wand and to help me undo it. And depending on the client's, the parent's vibe, if I feel like I can go ahead and say this way, I will. And I'll say, listen, this problem been around for 15 years. He or she is 17. I don't have a magical wand, because some parents, after the second session, I had one parent that removed their child from an intern doing therapy that I had because they said the kid got the same problem. Wow. I said, the kid is 19. Like, it's been present since they were 7. Like, we're not going to have a magical wand. And so parents or adults also need to recognize when they are wanting to do therapy or family therapy or send their child to therapy as well. They need to understand that they're part of the process, and they cannot just drop off their kid per se to therapy and go to Starbucks. That ain't how this works. But that's what they do, though.
Yes.
That's what they do.
Wow. 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 That's heavy. That's heavy right there for a parent to not know or be exposed themselves. Come into your
go to therapy.
You go. No.
Wait. And then best part is, especially Black and brown parents, and you better not tell them everything that's happening in this household. Oh wait, I'm sorry. You want them to come be transparent with us, because clearly they ain't talking to you. But then you don't want them to tell us stuff. But then you say they're not getting better. Maybe they're not getting better because they can't tell us everything. So we can't fix everything. So please stop. Like,
don't do that. Listen, you bring it to Dr. TK. Listen, you got to make sure the kid's able to tell them everything, every detail. That is the only way your child is going to be able to be successful as an adult. Listen. My next question that I have is, what is one thing that your program did for your client you did not expect?
That's a good question. I would say, I'm trying to formulate a sentence around success, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. But I and the client had to redefine, I guess, what success looks like. The population that I've chosen primarily to work with, I'm gonna say about 75% of my career were with people, children or adults, who did not believe in mental health, don't think mental health is helpful, or were forced to go to mental health because they were mandated, kind of thing. And so that person and I, or their family context, had to sit down and really look at, what does success look like in this new world that they live in. Because, for example, if I worked with an adolescent boy coming out of the jail, I would believe that I want that person to graduate from high school with a diploma, very specific, right? Go to college or pick up a trade, get a good job. And all that sounds great. But in actuality, I also have to recognize that when I send that person home from our session, their family, if they don't come in and get help themselves, may undo everything I just did. So I had to redefine what success looks like. So that might mean, instead of getting a diploma, that kid may only have the capacity to get a GED, but that's cool. At least they finish. Or maybe a different, I'm laughing, but it's like so not funny. It's just, again, a defense mechanism is, I've had kids that ditch every day when they go to school, but they come into their session all of a sudden, and then slowly they start to go to like their second or third period. Then they go to a full day. They still ain't doing homework though, but they're going to school. And I then have to communicate that to everybody else, saying, but again, where were they at when I first started with them? And where were they at now? So in essence, to answer your question, I help the client slow themselves down to see their progress and reflection to where they started, redefine success, and also give themselves a pat on the back for accomplishing something and being able to hopefully finish with me. Because when we talk about abandonment, a lot, I call it graduation versus termination for a reason at the end of therapy, because a lot of people don't know what a good goodbye looks like. Wow. Because either people were taken from them or passed away, died, got killed.
Wow.
Stuff. So I have to teach them how to have a good goodbye. Like, it's okay to say goodbye.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Listen, whew, whew. It's cooking up in here, ladies and gentlemen. It is cooking. It is cooking up in here. Listen, y'all. I hope y'all tuning into this meaty subject. Because a lot of people don't talk about this. You know, we go through life and we go through relationships after relationship and dealing with, and then we get married. Some of us get married, and then some of us don't get married, and we're not exposed to the knowledge and understanding of why we're not getting married. It could be issues that we have not tapped into that we need to start dealing with. And so
Right.
this, I know for this was one of the heaviest issues that I had dealt with growing up as a child, was the abandonment. You know, I, like you said, clinging on to people. I cling to girls, you know, not to even pump myself up, but I used to date multiple women when I was younger. And so and that was a sense of me having let's see, emergency scapegoat as
That cushion.
yeah, that cushion, like, oh, she lived on trip, I got another one, you know. So
Uh-huh.
I'm just speaking facts because I know a lot of men deal with it, even women deal with this topic and this subject, and
Hmm.
some people are afraid to really dig into the things that they're struggling with. I have a few more questions. So one of the things you touched on it a couple times, but I really want you to expound on it. And this is the misunderstanding people have when it comes to this situation. The misunderstanding. Really expound on that and give people knowledge behind it. Explaining to them how people can misinterpret or misunderstand um, the situation behind this type of dealing with this process of abandonment, because
Hmm.
you touched on it, like I said, we're dealing with people coming together, families being part of it. Please, can you expound on that, Dr. TK?
Yeah, so I think that the timeline activity would help. I think that it's very difficult for any individual, including providers, to
Mm,
look in the mirror. Like, we can always give advice or suggestions. I think this is for anybody. We can always give advice or suggestions to other people, but somehow become a hypocrite when the mirror or the arrow is turned on
right.
ourselves. And I think one big thing to recognize, whether you're a provider, whether you're a servant in the community, or just a good friend or family member, is to always recognize that everybody has a story. And I may use the word narrative interchangeably, but everybody has a story. And I think that that's why I've been able to successfully work with a lot of the communities that people don't want to work with, is
Mm,
because I've been able to sit down and say, okay, they made a bad decision, especially with
yeah.
the individuals that have been incarcerated. And I mean, I read the papers, you know what I'm saying? Like, some
Yes.
of them
Yes.
did some not great things.
Right.
And at the end of the day, though, everybody comes from somewhere. And yes, on two ends, I agree. It's like a catch-22. On one end, I do believe that you have to be able to follow the rules as a citizen in the world, period. And when you make your bed, you lay in it,
Yeah.
period. I don't care what kind of deck you were built. But on the other end, we also can't expect them to follow the rules wholeheartedly and continue to do so if nothing is motivating them, if nothing is
Mhm.
reinforcing them, or if no one honestly has sat down to teach them. So when we talk about
Right. Right.
abandonment, a lot of the pieces that are missing from, I'm gonna say, children who get abandoned and they don't grow up to have healthy relationships, or they have poor behaviors or poor impulse control, like
Yes.
they just do stuff, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Whether it be relationships or not, is no one has sat down to teach them. So
Mm,
what I've done, which is why I said you got to redefine success, is that I find what they haven't been taught that's preventing them from reaching their goals. And that's where we start. And a lot of my younger clients, one girl, she told me, she was like 23. She hit me up after 2 sessions. She texted me and she said, so when we gonna start therapy? I said, we started therapy. She said, but it don't feel like it. I'm like, well, what did you expect? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, she was like, well, like, I know you don't have me lay on the couch and stuff, but like, I just thought, like, I was gonna talk about all this bad stuff or whatever. I said, you did already. You did it in that activity. Moving on. Let's now talk about how you need to overcome that bad stuff and then
right.
how you can
Right.
move forward. And she was like, oh, this seems so much lighter than what they put on TV. I said, so stop watching TV. Like, Not
Stop
saying it ain't
watching
gonna be
TV.
heavy. Yeah, not saying that people it ain't gonna be heavy. It depends on your level of trauma.
Yeah.
But I work backward. What do you want to accomplish? Now, what do we need to resolve or fix if you can't fix it? Because some things you cannot fix. You can't fix other people. You can't fix your parents.
Right.
Okay, so you can
Right.
process it though.
Yes.
Then move on.
Yes. Yes. And oh my goodness. So recognizing everyone has a story. The teaching is important. A lot of people have not been taught how to operate or function in society. And I totally agree with you wholeheartedly, because even for me, like I said, being abandoned by my dad, my mom, she was there, but she had 6 other kids, to tend to, and right back to back. It wasn't like I'm the oldest of 6. And so she had kids to tend to back after right back to back. And so it caused for me to drive myself towards the streets. I got involved in gang banging. I got involved in selling drugs. I got incarcerated multiple times in the county jail, and then I end up going to the prison system. So I completely understand where you're saying that it's kind of hard and it's a struggle for people that have been incarcerated to come back into society and think they're going to be successful or achieve anything outside of the realm of knowing what they know, when they in all their life they've been taught this way. And so now they have to change their ethos and say, okay, I need to change my mindset, because for me, I had to literally shift my paradigm and say, okay, I need to focus and recalibrate. I have 2 baby boys that I just had. What am I going to do? Am I going to continue to run in these streets and get myself killed or back in prison for the rest of my life? Or am I going to make some changes within me? And so would you say that a person has to make up in his mind and heart, or her heart and mind, to make that decision to say, okay, I'm going to make this change because I know there's something better for me?
Yeah, hands down. Like if we're talking about the conjunction even of mental health and working with someone who's had a lot of baggage
Mm-hmm.
or trauma, like therapy will never work. And I don't care how many times you want to play this over in your head, whoever's listening, therapy will never work if you don't think it's going to work. It's under faith. Therapy also will not work, like I mentioned earlier, if you're not teachable and coachable. So if you go sit down and you believe that this is whack, this isn't going to help me, I don't need to change the way I'm thinking. I'm not saying that can't be worked out in the beginning stages of therapy, but it will prolong somebody from reaching their goals. The people who I have seen successful, no matter where they've come from, and their background is that one day they woke up and said, enough is enough. Now, I do believe that some people need to hit their own rock bottom.
Right.
Like, and there's been clients, and some of my kids, where one in particular, where I had to take a step back, and he hit all the way rock bottom, which is why he's in the predicament that he's in now.
Yes.
But I had to also, as a helper and as a servant, because I want parents to hear this too, or even if you have an adult child, is that you can give somebody, even people who are on drugs, you can give people all the help that you want, but it's not until they sit up and say, I don't want to live this life anymore, that the help is actually going to help them.
That's good. That's good. I hope you guys are listening. So don't continue to waste your time on someone and they're not looking to help their own self. They must make up in their mind and their heart that they actually want to make the change. So be sensitive to that, people. Be sensitive to that, people. And one thing she touched on was faith. Are you a woman of faith, Dr. Tekesia Jackson?
Yes.
Amen. Amen. Listen, I am a man of God, serve the God Almighty, follower of Jesus Christ. And so listen, she is a woman of God. She is a woman of faith. And so if you're looking, like I said, if you're looking for support or resources, Dr. Tekesia Jackson is available for you. Okay. We have about two more questions, and we're going to get up out of her hair. Amen. All right. So next questions I have for you. So you touched on it, talking about your father. He had got incarcerated and everything. So can you expound on that and the experience of your abandonment? And you, yes.
So, I mean, in a nutshell, I think I moved to California when I was 2, because I was born in Portland. Most people don't know that, but moved here when I was 2. Primarily, the It's funny because when I look back on it, I feel like my mom did a very good job compared to what I see some women do. She has never bad talked my dad, at least in my face. Like I've never heard her say anything like negative. Anytime I made an attempt as a child to want to reach out to him, she made it happen. One thing that she made happen, and I don't even know how it happened, but it did, is that I always knew I may not have been as close to them as I am my mom's side of the family, but I would go over there on the holidays. I would spend the night with his family. So it just also started to feel very weird though, as I got older and I started to recognize like, how the heck do I know his whole family and I don't know him? This is whack. And so I remember there was a time, because if somebody were to ask me when was the first time you met your dad, I would actually say 17, because the first incident was not a good one. And neither was the one when I was 17. So when I first met him, that I can recollect. I remember, I feel like I was like 7 to 10 or something like that. And he was in Long Beach at the time. That's why I always say he was down the street because I was in Compton, like he was in East Long Beach. And I remember I don't know if she dropped me off or he came and picked me up, but he took me to his little apartment. And I thought it was odd that he would have me come to his apartment too, because I said, I want to spend time with you. I want to get to know you as a kid. That's not my job, but whatever. That's what I asked. Yeah. And then he just made me go outside and play with these kids in the neighborhood. I will call that traumatic because heck, I remember it like it was yesterday. Right. And so I remember it was like some kids that just didn't play with the same stuff I played with. They were playing with like snails and stuff. And I'm like, where's the Barbies? Where's the basketball? Like something else. Yeah. And I remember kept going back to the door saying, can I come in? I don't want to play. He was like, just play with them. And then I recognized there was an exchange of cannabis. And I'm like, I know what this is. You deal with drugs or whatever. So I just went back outside. I'm like, I don't want to be around this anyway. So that first encounter kind of hurt my feelings, which is why I say my first encounter was the second one, because I wanted to forget about this. When I actually asked him to take me home, he said no. I said, take me home now, or I probably will scream or something. And so he ended up driving me home. And I kid you not, I don't know where this underpass is, but it's like maybe the 91 or 710 freeway. Every time I drive, this is trauma. Anytime I drive under an underpass that looks like it's in that neighborhood, I don't stay in this moment of sadness, but I don't freak out either, but I get low-key a little sad, like at least for a couple of minutes, because it's the memory of what happened next. When he was driving me home, I was so mad at him that I told him to pull over and let me out the car. And I guess he pulled over because I got out the car and it was like homeless people. And I'm like, I don't care. I'll walk to my mama's house. I don't know where I was going, but he ended up having to get out the car and make me get inside the car. And I like told him I hate him. I don't ever want to see him again. Hate is a strong word. So like, I won't go into like other situations, but like I could just give you categories because it may resonate with people of from that 17 Christmas list, asked mom, can I meet him? Met him, didn't go so well because he started bad talking my mom. I was like, you need to own your stuff. Moved on, cried. He showed up to like a college graduation that he was not invited to. Not a good idea. Then he was invited to a very significant life event and he decided to have his mother tell me he couldn't come. I thought that was a cop-out. And then after that, that's when I reached out to my sister. We had I stayed over her house. And that's when she shared with me his narrative, his story. Remember, everybody got a story. So I listened to his story, and what I had heard was that he was a hurt person, and hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. And I had recognized that he had went through a lot of physical abuse, whatever, during his childhood by his father. So I said, oh, so you ain't got nobody to teach you. And then his sibling's father had died when I was 7. So they died when he was young. Still. So after all of this, I had that incident with the Gridiron Gang kid or whatever. And so that's when I just want to read this to you because I think it would hit is like on your point is it was a forgiveness. And so it's called the forgiveness hook. And so it's a poem and it says, and I share this with all my clients who are battling with forgiveness or who say, I can't forgive because we've all been through something. And forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you. So it says, being in unforgiveness is like being on a giant hook. Next to you on the hook is the person who has hurt you. The hook is extremely painful. Wherever you go, so does the hook and so does the offender. The only way you can get off the hook is if you allow the offender off first. The cost of not allowing the offender off the hook is perhaps a lifetime of unhappiness.
Wow.
And so when I share that, I usually ask people like, what did they get from that? And they usually take the last part. And I said, the reason why you can't get the healthy relationship or be healthy in the one that you have or attract the right mate or whatever it is because you are continuously thinking about and blaming the hook for the card deck that you have instead of taking ownership. You
Yeah.
after 18, I'm sorry, you
Yeah.
grown. You can make a
Yes.
decision to change.
Yeah. That is so awesome. Listen. You have to be able to forgive those that have caused a lot of trauma, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of hurt, a lot of scars in your life. You have to be, and I completely understand that because I had to forgive my dad. And now me and him are in for the last 2 years, we've been building a healthy relationship. We've been overcoming a lot of obstacles, a lot of stories that he's told me that I traumatized me as a kid. He was like, yeah, how you remember that? You was only this age. You was only this age. And
Yeah.
so
Mm-mm.
like you have to understand the other person's story, like Dr. Tekesia said, understanding their story and their background, because your mom may not have told you everything, or your dad may not have told you everything. But once you get the other individual's story and background, you can understand why these things
Mm-hmm.
happen in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so our final question, one thing I want to touch on. So the navigation through that process of your trauma.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Can you touch on that real quick?
Yeah, so I'll just yell out these words. It's A through E. And so this is just the 5 steps to forgiveness. So
Okay.
A is acknowledge that you've been hurt, acknowledge your
Mhm.
anger. B is bar from revenge. There shouldn't be repayment or punishment to the offender. C is consider. So this is hard, but you have to, like I did with him, I have to consider his perspective. Everybody has a story to understand why he does the things that he does.
Yeah.
D is decide to accept the hurt without unloading it onto the other person. So
Mm.
there's no tit for tat. Passing it back magnifies the problem. And
Right.
then E is extend. This is the forgiveness last stage is
Mm.
extend compassion of goodwill to the other person. This releases them off the hook. So
Wow. That is so good. That is good. That's some steps right there. She said, and I'm gonna just reiterate what she just said. Acknowledge first.
mhm,
Bear, then B, bear for revenge. Bear for revenge. C, consider the other person, the individual. And then D, decide and accept the hurt. And E, extend compassion and goodwill. Wow, that is beautiful. That is awesome. So you guys take those steps. These steps are good. Take those steps and roll with it. Like I said, if you need any professional help, Dr. Tekesia Jackson is available for you. We'll make sure she's tagged on every Instagram post, every social media post. We'll make sure that she is available to be reached for you guys to receive help. Um, so for this final question, Dr. Tekesia, if you can tell us, do you have any resources available that you can give to the people where they'd be able to seek professional help? Because we already have you as a resource. So is there any other resources that you can provide for the people that are looking for professional help?
mhm. So typically, I would say always start if you can, if you have insurance. Start for a lot of people, start with their insurance. That's where most people want to start.
Mhm.
And I say start with your insurance, meaning call your insurance provider and tell them what type of therapist you're looking for,
Mhm.
male, female, black, white, brown, things like that. And what is your actual problem that they can help you with, because we have to fill out that paperwork when we're insured. Some people go on Google first, and you can type in words like clients type in for me, Black therapist near me, and then it Googles it based off of their zip code, or nowadays we do therapy online.
Mhm.
Um, but I would say Google is a good resource, but Google will typically lead you to a website called psychologytoday.com.
Mhm.
That's a good website because not everybody's listed on it. We do have to pay to be listed as a provider, but that's where you can see like a picture of the provider. You can get an idea of their philosophy. You can also see what type of payments they take, what type of payment range, because not I will put this out there, even though we're talking about abandonment and trauma, some people want to go to therapy and are not dealing with those things. And I'll be quite frank, and you can check this out on my IG stories. There are sections for mental health where I show you how to find a therapist.
Right.
Not all your problems will be covered under your insurance. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. I didn't make the system, but that's how it's made.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and not all couples counseling is never covered by insurance. Family therapy is covered by insurance, and one of you has to have the diagnosis. So I'm just gonna put that out there too. But psychologytoday.com, the Boris L. Henson Foundation, they're going through their third phase at the time of this recording today. But you can go to their website. They also have an IG page. It's the Taraji P. Henson Foundation.
Okay.
Another one is Therapy for Black Girls. They give a lot of referrals out.
Yes.
Those are the ones who I know off the top of my head that a lot of people go to already.
Okay. All right. Listen, we thank you for the resources that you gave us, Dr. Tekesia. We appreciate your time and the knowledge and exposing these things to everyone that is watching this. Listen, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to make sure that those resources that Dr. Tekesia made available, we're going to make sure that you're available. They're available for you on my page, and even on Dr. Tekesia's page. I know she will have everything available, all resources available for you. But listen, hey, Dr. Tekesia, I thank you for the time. For your time. I didn't mean to take up so much of your time.
It's good.
I really thank you for even just allowing this time. Man, it was so knowledgeable. It was so helping. And I pray that it helps those that are even going to tune into this. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for letting me share light, especially in a time like this.
Man, in a time like this, tell me about it. But listen, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. And
all right.
I love you. Thank you. Listen, y'all support Dr. Tekesia Jackson. If you could shout out your Instagram page, that would be great.
Oh, yeah. So it's Dr. TK Psych. Doctor spelled out, then TK Psych, because I do have an old page called Dr. TK. I am not active, but you'll see it because it looks more updated. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So like she said, go and follow her on Instagram and every social media platform. Listen, she is ready and available to answer any questions that you have. And hey, listen, we out of here. I thank you. Tell the family I said hello, and okay. I will be seeing you soon.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
So, yes, that is it for today. We hit on a very heavy topic, abandonment issues. Oh, my God. That was so heavy. But listen, we shall continue this conversation, but be on the lookout. Be on the lookout for what is going on. I got something in store for you people. Man, I've been working hard at this music, and so, but I just want to see people grow and be exposed to the knowledge and understanding of situations they may be dealing with currently in their life. So, hey, this your boy Chrvch signing in, never off. Holla at you.